All right. It says we're live. I'm going to double check and make sure we're live.
I believe.
You believe?
We can share all of this
Yeah.
stuff out.
Says we're good. Let's share it out.
And we've got all of the animals showing up. It's like you know.
Right?
We're just going to have a tail in frame.
Hi, super roommate. Welcome. We'll give it a couple minutes for people to show up.
Trickle in and say hi.
In the meantime, remind me which furry, non-furry baby we have here.
This one's Nissa.
Nissa. Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Lindsay.
Lindsay!
We're so glad you're here. Because you actually read it with us. Hi, Mickey. All right. Now that people are starting to trickle in, just a quick reminder, this is our live show discussion for Scarlet by Marissa Meyer, which is the second book in the Lunar Chronicles series. So if you did not read the first book with us last month, you may find this extra spoilery. So I am going to put that out there at the beginning of this just because I don't want anyone to be unintentionally spoiled for the book unless they want to be spoiled. Because believe me, we're going to be talking about spoilers for Cinder for sure. And we will dive into spoilers for Scarlet. But, sorry, I was about to burp.
The joys of being live.
The joys of being live. It's a real thing. So do you want to give a brief description of Scarlet, or would you like me to?
I can go for it.
Okay, go for it.
So, to me, Scarlet is the introduction of a new cast of characters in which we start the...
I hit the wrong button. I'm sorry.
That's fine. Like I said, going live, these things happen. But we start a little bit of a Little Red Riding Hood retelling. We have a new cast of characters set in France. We have a new storyline of a young girl named Scarlet Benoit, who's in search of her grandmother. And so we start right there. We start with Scarlet and her search and what her life is like right now. And then we also get the continuation of Cinder's story as she's breaking out of prison and trying to find more information about her past. And that's kind of what this current book is all about. And it starts out a little slow, but then by the end, you have a lot of epic things starting to go down, and you learn a lot of new information that first time around is kind of shocking, but second time around is you're like, oh yeah, they set up all of these hints for all of this to hit at this point way back when. Kind of fun to see.
Right. So for those who aren't aware, April and I have both read the Lunar Chronicles before. We're rereading this for a project that we're doing with another one of our YouTube friends. But so we're both looking at this on reread, but we have been reading it with Lindsay in the comments, Lindsay Tutt, and she's reading it for the first time. So we're seeing it in a slightly different scope than she is, but we love watching Lindsay theory craft as we buddy read them together. So I have to be honest on Scarlet. The first time I read this, I did not enjoy it. I was annoyed that we weren't getting information on Cinder in the beginning. And I really wanted to know what was happening with her. I had become very attached to her, and I just needed to know she was safe and okay. And that was just something that you don't get for the first little bit of this book. And it really bothered me. And I felt like she waited too long to jump in there. On a second read, I actually appreciated getting Scarlet's foundation before we get information on Cinder again. Like I said, the first time I read that was super annoying to me. But on the second time, I appreciated it a lot more. And I also appreciated the weave of the story that wasn't as coherent the first time you read through this series as it is the second time through. Another thing that annoyed me a lot the first time through were Scarlet and Wolf as characters, as they were so different from the characters that I grew to love in Cinder. And we don't really see the characters I love from Cinder in the same light in Scarlet either. For me, this book always felt like the odd one out in the series, but on a second read, it's actually kind of a linchpin piece because this is where people start to come together in the series towards the end of the book. And I didn't appreciate that as much the first read as I did on the second read. So I'm really just excited to keep going with the series now. And I still have a great and terrible love for Captain Thorn. He will always be one of my precious, like, characters in literature that I've always enjoyed. From the first page, he is this sassy, snarky, has to get away with everything kind of person, and I love him forever for that. I feel like Meyer did a really great job writing his character because he is so unlike any of the other characters that we see in this series. I don't feel like he has any of the personality traits of any of the other characters, and it makes him stand out because I feel like some of the others start to look a little like each other in the series, not like drastically, but little things kind of come across in the writing where they start to feel the same, especially our heroines. There are certain things in the personalities that start to kind of blend together as they are all based on fairy tale characters, and a lot of those fairy tale characters do have some similarities in their personalities. I do like that Scarlet was a more confident character than Cinder. I always appreciated that in her character from the word go. And I think even more so this second time where she knew who she was, she had a purpose in life, and she had a purpose in the moment. And I really appreciated that about her character very, very much. And Wolf as a character, I always like had mixed feelings about on the first read. But on this second read, Wolf is just this little cinnamon roll of a giant wolf man, and I kind of love him a lot. I understand now why people enjoy Scarlet and Wolf so much. To me, as I read the series, there were other couples I was much more invested in. And so this one was like my lowest, but I can't say that anymore. There are things about these characters that I really loved on this second read. So I think for me, this second read actually did this book a great service because it let me appreciate this linchpin point in the story much more. So I'm sorry, I've been going on for like 5 minutes. I'll let you talk.
I was definitely going to let you go because I do have to agree. The second time around, I did enjoy the Scarlet and the Wolf character a lot more. Like you said, I was so invested because of the first book in Kai and Cinder that when we switched into this story that was mostly about these two unknown characters that I didn't see how it was going to connect, that's when I started having issues. And that slowness at the first part of that book is you don't realize it. It's setting a foundation for a lot of different things. It's setting this backstory that is explaining how Cinder is who she is. It's telling us why she doesn't have any memories. It's telling her why she is a cyborg. But because it's mostly centered around Scarlet and Wolf, you don't see that the first time around because you're so confused, I guess.
Right. So until the last like quarter of the book, you don't understand why these characters are important.
Right. And I mentioned this to you before we started streaming that I still struggled a little bit with the Scarlet and Wolf character. And I know a lot of things, a lot of the romance with them is to do with the fact that he is very much an alpha wolf and she's a very passionate person. So there's an instant love connection that still to this day kind of makes me feel a little wobbly.
It is. I told you this off stream too, but it is a bit forced for me.
Yeah.
I read a lot of paranormal romance and deal with the whole like mate like finding thing in those, and I still feel like this one is very, very forced. I do think I almost wish Meyer would have like read a little bit more of the paranormal romances that deal with wolves before she wrote this book. just to help like flush out that part of her lore, because it doesn't really explain it other than, oh, wolves are in charge of finding their mate and protecting the pack. Like
Right.
that's all the like explaining you get about why they're so deeply connected. Where I
Well,
wish she almost would have like taken an extra like 15 to 20 pages and actually given us some lore to really like connect all that through so that
yeah.
it made more sense. So for that aspect, I can't give this book a 5 star because that's a really important piece for me.
Mhm.
But like I say, on this second read, I enjoyed it a lot more. But I do think that's also because I knew what to expect.
Yeah, and I agree. I think if a little bit more of that backstory for him was fleshed out a little bit more. But I also feel like a lot of things should have been pushed off a little further in the timeline because I feel like Scarlet is such a passionate person. She's a redhead. She's a French woman. Of course, there's going to be all of these different pieces that lead to this very fiery personality, but she's also in my mind who's hyper focused on things because of that passion. So because she was looking for her grandmother for most of this story, I almost felt like this love story shouldn't have happened until after everything with that kind of hit the point where it hit. There
Right. And especially where there were 3 books for these characters to be involved. I think we could have reached like the pivotal point of their like romantic relationship, maybe in the middle of the next book, and taken some more time with them
yeah,
before it was like, yes, we are mates. We are together forever.
exactly. Yes. That's kind of where I was coming from with that part. And you're right. That's the main reason why I can't give this as high of a rating. I left it at a 4 because that's where I feel like it needs to be. That's where I feel
And
like
see, on
all
my first read, I gave this one a 3.5 because I was annoyed. But on reread, I would bump it up to a 4 for sure.
Mhm. And then
No
of
doubt
course
about it.
you did mention Captain Thorn in this book,
I
and
love my thorny
I love
man.
the introduction because he reminds me so much of characters that I really, really love. One of them
Mhm.
being what's his uh, Captain Jack, and
Yeah,
the other one being my other Captain Jack. So we've got my Doctor Who and we've got my Pirates of the Caribbeans coming in
right.
one
Paul, he
character,
really is a good mix of those two, isn't
right?
he? I hadn't
Uh-huh,
put that together. But man, he so is.
uh-huh, uh-huh. And I think it's the lines where
Oh,
he's constantly
especially the
reminding
Doctor Who
people.
one. The
Uh-huh.
Doctor Who one is very prevalent. I had not picked up on that before.
Yeah. So immediately he was Captain Jack Harkness to me. And then when he kept on saying his
Yes,
lines, it's like, it's no, I'm captain. You don't have a ship. I'm captain. That's
I'm
when
Captain.
when the piratiness started kicking in. So
Yes. So I'm like, and we have to talk about Aiko because one, Aiko is just queen and we love Aiko. And two,
always.
Aiko she basically goes through an identity crisis in this book because she's no longer in her robot body. She is in this ship and she's basically piloting the ship and she's like in this big lunky body and she's not comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And that just kind of explains a lot about who she is. And I know that she's not going to be part of the ship forever. So that's all I'm going to say about that. But it's one of those things that I just really genuinely appreciate that Meyer let it kind of be this awkward identity crisis for Aiko, as Cinder was kind of going through that as well. I felt like it was really great that they were both kind of going through it together because they knew what the other person needed to hear, even though they weren't necessarily good at taking their own advice.
Right. No. Yeah,
Because we
I go
haven't really talked too much about Cinder for this book.
mm,
And Cinder's character changes a lot after her arrest. And I feel like her determination is different. And she realizes things that she hadn't realized before because she's coming into who she is. And even with like all of these powers that she realizes she has now, it's one of those things where she's still afraid of her own power because she's been told her whole life how horrible lunars are, and now she's discovered she is one.
mm-hmm.
And it's this whole identity crisis for her because not only is she lunar, she is a very, very powerful lunar. And
Right.
people fear her because of her power. And that's the whole like linchpin in this series is that Levana's afraid of her because Levana will lose all of her power over her people as soon as Cinder comes into play. And so she's trying to manipulate the situation so that she can never get that. And like, I know we're supposed to have this book where we actually care about Levana, but I just still don't. That book just annoyed me in a lot of ways because it's like, this was supposed to endear me to you, but it just makes me hate you more.
Yeah, the short story it wanted you to have some kind of empathy for her, but
And I definitely didn't. It just made me hate her more.
never acts.
It's like you really are a horrible human being, aren't you?
Never acts in a
Or a
way,
horrible lunar being, I should say.
and I think it kind of it shows a little bit of the lunar mentality of what has been happening to them mentally because of how they live and how they're developing and how I don't want to say inhuman, but how they're starting to branch off in a direction that is very uncomfortable.
Right. They don't live in a humanity kind of sense.
Right.
And it's very apparent. And and Lindsay points out, and Kai is a butt. We haven't even gotten to talking about Kai yet.
No,
Kai
haven't.
is going through his own version of an existential crisis through this book as well. Because this woman that he cared very deeply for is now this person he's been looking for basically his entire life. And he feels duped, and he also like has to protect his kingdom and his country, and it's just a lot, and he does what he thinks is best even though he feels like it's wrong and he knows that it's wrong. He's still choosing those decisions because he feels put in a corner, and that's exactly what Levana wants. And it's just this whole big thing. And
Yeah,
I feel bad for Kai, but at the same time, like he was mean.
He's stuck between a rock and a hard place.
He is.
And it's just going to show you that at this point in time, he can't think about himself because it's not going to help anybody. It's one person against the whole country, basically.
And the whole world, essentially.
He's stuck making some uncomfortable choices, and yeah, he really started to kind of like Cinder as a person, but in reality she's just a girl he met for a week, if even that.
I want to say it's 2 weeks is all the time that takes place in Cinder. Yeah, it's only 2 weeks.
I mean, even that, I mean, it's 2 weeks.
It's still too fast, yeah.
Yeah, and so of course he's not necessarily going to choose her over the country, so.
Right. So anime and manga lovers asking how we are today.
We are here.
Yes, we are here. We are surviving. We do not have the dreaded thing that will not be mentioned on this channel.
No. This is a safe zone right now.
Yes. So I've actually been reading quite a bit. I finished 2 arcs in the last 24 hours that I've just been meaning to get to. They're out on Tuesday, and so I'm probably going to do a mashup review of the 3 because I've got 1 more to go, and I'll probably start that tomorrow and hopefully have it done by Tuesday.
Yeah, and I've gone through, I think, like 4 or so arcs.
Yeah.
In the last, like 5 days or so, just because.
Yeah. I've also been playing a lot of Animal Crossing's New Horizons. So
and
that's
I don't
been taking
have
up a lot of my time.
Yes.
It is a worthwhile distraction, in my opinion. But
I just don't have the platform to play such a game.
Understood. So, is there anything else you wanted to talk about in regards to Cinder? Or not Cinder, Scarlet. Scarlet's the book we're talking about.
I do have to mention, this is the first time we ever get Levana's point of view.
Very true. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we get that short little section where we kind of, I mean, that's our first introduction to her mind think.
Yes.
which is fairly interesting, and it also introduces us to this army that she's building. And I find it odd that she's choosing to base her world domination on a mutant group of lunars that she cannot control.
Right.
It does not seem like a good plan from the get-go. I'm not sure how this, I mean, if I remember, some of the short stories sort of start to explain why she decided to do this.
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but it seems kind of dumb.
Right. And getting the piece of information that, these thaumaturges or, these leaders of these packs, one thing I didn't catch before is that they have also been genetically altered, just like the lunar wolf beings, to control them. But Cinder, who hasn't been genetically altered, as far as we know and can tell at this point, can take control of someone from the pack away from this genetically altered thaumaturge, just proves how powerful this princess really is. And it's really just an interesting thing. Oh, another thing I wanted to mention was Scarlet's grandmother. We get a lot of backstory about her grandmother and why she made certain decisions that she did to lead Cinder to being saved and being protected and safe and all of these things. It's just so interesting. I love it. And Grandma's boss, love Grandma. Sad about Grandma, but love Grandma. Michelle Benoit is a fantastic person.
I agree.
And, I love that there's just things we learn about her that we just love. She's just great.
Can we take a second to recognize the fact that this whole posse is eventually going to be made up of lunars of various grades?
Yeah.
I didn't quite pick up on that.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on the fact that Scarlet was lunar the first go through.
Yeah. So
I did not.
Earth is under the care of a ragtag team.
Group of lunars.
And the boys who like them.
Is Thorn lunar or is he not?
No, he's an American.
Yeah, but all the girls end up being lunar.
Yeah.
Because Crest is lunar and Winter is lunar.
Mm-hmm. Just a lot.
And in Cinder, we had mention and meetings with, all of the main POV characters of each novel were mentioned in the first book. And I did not pick up on that the first time.
No.
And so we're headed into one where we're going to meet a character that we've already met, but they're going to have a significant place in this book. And that one is going to be Cress, which is one of my favorites in the entire series. May very well be my favorite. But this one is going to have like Rapunzel feels to it. And I just remember loving it so much the first time I read it. I'm really excited to revisit this one. So this is going to be our April pick. And it's just going to be so good. This one's a little longer than the other two. This one's over 500 pages, where the others are around 4 or 450. This one's almost 550 by the end.
Yeah, Cinder was, I think they keep getting like 100 more pages.
Until you hit Winter, that's like 800 pages long. So this one's like 550 pages. So just remember to add a little extra time in your reading for this one. So, yes. And then in May, we're going to do the final book, Winter. And then after that, we will get back to other retellings. Each one of these is a retelling. And like I said, we've been doing it for this other project, but we wanted to bring you all in so you had an opportunity to either read or reread the series, as it's very interesting and very fun.
Agreed.
And it's an older title, so we didn't want people to have to worry about like necessarily paying a ton. They did get a reprint in the paperbacks, and they got new covers, which are beautiful.
Oh, I love them.
I think I'm still partial to the older covers personally, just because they're a little less character specific, but I do love what they've done with the new covers. So,
well, I have a nostalgia for the reds and the blacks and the silvers of the original, but the color schemes of these new books,
they're beautiful. I won't deny that. Right. And they fit each character. So even if you don't have the covers that look like the ones we'll probably be holding up, like, they're still the right book, I promise. And I have thought about buying a set of the new ones. I don't know. I love this series enough that it might be worth a second set. I don't know.
I've contemplated it, but I mean, I'm defacing a whole set, and then I have my original signed set.
Yeah.
Maybe someday I'll have, I don't know.
All right. So yes, our live show in April will be the last Sunday of the month, same time, this time on April's channel, because we alternate hosting. So make sure you are subscribed to April if you're not, and just be ready to discuss this glorious book, because I know it's one we both enjoy and we are very excited to revisit it. Because I did not realize how many small details I forgot in this series until I was reading it. Because holy crap. It's been insane. It's been a wild ride. It's been good, though. It's been a good time. All right. Well, I don't think I really have anything else to talk about in this one. Oh, Kai's assistant. Because his assistant is now who used to be his dad's assistant, and now he's working with Kai. And from what I remember, we need to pay close attention to him.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
If my memory serves correct, we need to keep a close eye on him. So
there are things.
Had to throw that in there. And let's see. There's something else I wanted to bring up. What was it? Oh. Okay, so the chemistry between Scarlet and Wolf. We touched on that a little bit and how we both felt like the instant bond was a little forced. But I do have to say that throughout the course of the novel, they did develop the relationship more than I originally remembered. I just remember in the beginning, it felt very insta-lovey. But on a reread, she did try to develop it. So I have to give her credit for that. And I think that's partially why I bumped up my rating. But it's one of those things where, like I said before, I think if she'd read a few more like paranormal wolf-based shifter romances and worked on the lore side of it, I think it would have landed a little bit better. And I'm just really excited to learn more about Wolf's kind, as we will in the next couple of books. And it's just going to be an interesting ride and adventure. So again, as always, April, thank you for coming on the channel. And I love that you love hosting this book club with me. It makes us both very, very happy.
Exactly.
We love our retellings, and I'm really excited to dive into some new ones once we finish this reread. We've got a few kind of kicking around in both our heads. I'm sure we'll have it all planned out here shortly. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching. We love that you came to chat with us. You guys are always welcome to leave comments. We always do our best to respond to them. And we hope you guys will join us for Crest next month. The books are quick reads, so if you want to hurry and catch up so you can be live with us and to be able to live talk about Crest, you are always welcome to do that.
Just be warned that with everything going on in the world right now, there is some triggery things this around with.
This is very true. There is a disease at the center of this series. So be careful and aware of your mental health as you read these, because parts of it might feel a little triggering. I didn't even think about that because we delve into the disease a lot more in the next book. So just know that will be a big part of things. And if that's going to be affecting you, like, just be prepared. So yes, I think with that, I think we're done. As always, you can find April over on her channel at April Sarah, and you're always welcome to subscribe to me if you're not. And we will see you guys next month talking about crafts. Thanks, guys. See you later.
Bye.